What's going on, everybody? This is the first edition of the TigerCast, where I talk to random people on Twitter over the internet about random things. Today, we have Mr. Faceberg. Mr. Faceberg is he's a blend of e-business Twitter and weird esoteric weird meme Twitter, and he's been a popular account for the past what would you say, 2 years?
I
3
think I started in October 2015, but the account really picked up speed probably 2 years ago after the election.
Okay, so what the man himself just said right there, and we're going to have a little discussion on whatever we think about and whatever we want to talk about. So, Facebook, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Just got done with the work week, so ready to check out for 2 more days and do it again.
Oh yeah, the life of the wage slave. Now, what I want to talk about initially, and then we can kind of build from here, is you have this Patreon account where
Mhm.
you have this your little writing as a service. It's networking for needs. Can you give us some insight on networking for needs and what its benefits are?
So my idea with that was to provide business advice that was unorthodox and wasn't available on the internet.
Right.
When I was going through university and even high school, I was getting outdated advice from parents that meant well or counselors that had no idea what they were talking about.
Right. Boomer blindness.
Exactly. I mean, they mean well, but the doctor, lawyer, engineer path isn't the best path anymore.
Mm-mm.
What networking for needs is, it's a lot of information I've collected over the years through my first couple of years of work experience, also health things that I do that have improved my health. So it's just a way for me to share that information with a wider audience.
Now, how do people get access to this networking for needs?
Right now, it's just a $5 subscription per month that gets you access to all the articles, as well as the ebook or the book that I'm writing when that comes out next year. So you get access to all of that. I also have different tiers. I wish the counseling tier or the consulting tier I offer, I wish that was just a one-time thing, because I don't expect anyone to pay 50 a month. But there's different tiers, and you can kind of pick and see which one would be the best fit for you.
Of course, of course. Now, you touched on this when you talked about that. How did you get started in the whole corporate wage slavery system?
I graduated college a few years ago and gotten really good grades, one of the top programs in the field I studied in, and I couldn't for the life of me find a full-time position after I graduated. And I ended up working a lot of part-time jobs, some full-time jobs that weren't very good. A long time to finally get things going because I didn't have access to very good information.
Hmm. So you just kind of, and then have you built your way up through your company, or have you kind of been in the same general position the past couple of years?
Usually I'll leave after a year if there's no opportunity for me to either make more money or take on more responsibility.
Right.
So right now I've done tech sales for a few years and I'm moving into actual programming.
Okay. Now,
Big change of pace.
you cut out there for a sec. Can you restate that?
So I'm moving into programming next year as opposed to selling software. I want to be making it. So that's going to be a big change for me.
Got you. Now, like I said in your introduction, you're kind of at the crossroads of the whole e-biz online business Twitter and like
Mhm.
the weird right wing, whatever you want to call it, meme Twitter. Um, can you explain a bit more about your thoughts on the e-business side of Twitter? Because I mean, I'm exposed to the meme Twitter. It's pretty funny, but it's more just for humor and venting and just kind of having a good time. But the e-business Twitter is kind of a new phenomenon in terms of online community. Can you give your thoughts on that?
Sure. So I got started as kind of a meme account following the election. Some of the kind of political, I don't want to call it discourse, but that sort of thing going on at the time.
Yeah.
My accounts kind of naturally evolved from that. I figured I'm spending so much time on Twitter, I might as well learn something from it. So I
Hmm.
started following a lot of the guys who were running successful businesses on it, seeing what I could learn from that and apply it to my own endeavors.
Good. Good. And have you found what is your general take on the health of the scene? Because I see a lot of people that they knock at the concept of the guru and that whole sort of ideal. Can you have your take on that?
There's definitely a lot of scams and a lot of people just trying to promote a personal brand and trying to make money off stuff that really isn't helpful to people. But
Yeah,
there are several accounts that or offer information that I think someone could find valuable.
definitely, definitely. Because it's very weird with this. We're kind of in the internet. We're the I don't want to say founding fathers because we didn't actually make it, but we're like the first generation to be on the internet and to start making money exclusively through the internet. So I think it's almost like the Wild West in a sense, where there's no structure, there's no huge regulations that have been put down yet. Say for like, excluding for Amazon, like in our sphere is what I'm talking about, the Twitter sphere.
It's it's definitely looking that way. A lot of people kind of outside of Twitter, outside of the internet, who just use social media, they don't realize you can make money online outside of on Craigslist and eBay.
Yeah,
So there's websites you can go on. I think it's called Empire Flippers. There's websites selling for millions of dollars, and so it's a very viable business model that not only gives you ownership over something, but you're able to create an asset you can eventually sell for multiples of the revenue you're bringing in.
exactly. And building off that point, I think it's so weird how so many the mass majority of people use Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, but they don't use it for any productive purpose whatsoever. They just use it to just fulfill the most base dopamine instincts. And I guess finding the value in this corner of Twitter where people are making money, people are like, although the advice kind of gets trite and you hear the same thing 50 times, like it is good advice. And like I think it's an unsung gem of the current internet era, which is kind of desolate in some senses.
I definitely agree. I figure anyone using social media might as well be getting something out of it. So if you can learn something through it, like I had a post, I think last night on how video games can teach people things that are tangential to the themes in the game.
Right.
All these opportunities for learning that are there that people just need to look for and take advantage of.
Right. Like I used to play Counter Strike a bunch, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people think it's just like shoot people in the head and whatnot. And that is a huge aspect. If you're just a casual, like that's basically all it boils down to. But if you want to play with a team so the audio crashed. Apparently, I need to buy the freaking software. I can't just run the trial forever. So fair game, fair game. But we were talking about video games and how skills in video games can be applicable to real life. So, Faceberg, what were you talking about that?
So I think I had mentioned that there was an aspect of games called tangential learning. There's a few videos on YouTube about this, but essentially a topic in a video game will catch your interest and then you'll go on and research that on your own and learn something that has a real world application.
So, like bartering or like in Skyrim, speech, persuasion, whatnot. Does that
Something to that effect. Like I mentioned, FPS players, they tend to know a lot about guns even if they don't own one, and that's useful knowledge.
That's very true for me, actually. Playing a lot of Call of Duty and whatnot, a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of CS:GO. Like, you know what bullet the AK fires. Even if you've never shot one in your life, you know how many rounds there's in the magazine. You know how fast it fires.
Exactly.
Lots of weird stuff like that. Do you think there's any? What is your take on video games as a whole?
As a whole, I prefer them to more passive entertainment like TV or film or just listening to music. You're really better off reading books, but sometimes you just need some downtime. And I think they can be useful both, not so much in a learning way, because books are better for that, but they're good to bond with friends online or just hang out.
Yeah, I've met a lot of my great online friends through video games. I think I think an idea would be to possibly limit the age. Like it's very hard to do this, but like somehow limit the age. I guess through just like a generation or two of parenting on who can play the game. You know, so I think Fortnite for children. I think that might have a negative effect. We have yet to see what that's gonna do to this younger generation. But if you're 20 and you're playing like I don't know, you're playing like a strategy game or you're playing your Counter Strike or your Final Fantasy, like and you have like a fairly successful outside life and then it's not taking away time from your other from real life activities, is it really that bad? I don't think so. I don't think so.
I know they've become popular to hate online. People say you shouldn't be playing them, and
Hmm.
there is some truth to that, but it's no worse than watching 3 hours on Sunday or something like that.
People still watch TV. That's so weird to me.
Yeah, I don't even have one.
Good. I feel that should be the next step everyone takes. Right here, if you're listening to this podcast, if you have a TV, throw it out. Okay.
There's little good from it.
You said something about video games a couple weeks ago that spoke to me. How you said when you would pick up something along the veins of when you would pick up a potion or something in Skyrim or RuneScape, like you wouldn't want to use it because of scarcity mindset or something like that. And that's exactly scarily how I would think in those games.
RPGs, specifically the harder ones, they definitely promote. You're familiar with like low time preference, high time preference, that concept.
Yeah.
RPG will promote a low time preference mindset in a player if they want to be successful, because you never know when you need an item for later, when you need to cast a spell later, especially if you're in some dungeon, you don't know what's around the corner or if the boss is going to be hard. So there's definitely a something that it promotes that makes you conserve your resources and focus more on the future than immediate gratification.
Right. Right. Do you think do you think there's any like somebody else tweeted like this that there's kind of a stagnation in genre in a sense. Like there hasn't been that many advancements in the game genre. Like I guess they're saying VR, but like there hasn't been a new genre since what like the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. Do you think there will ever be a new genre or a huge breakthrough? Except in more less of on the lines of like better graphics and more of like paradigm shifting, mechanics and whatnot.
Definitely be interesting to see what happens. I mean, the industry knows what genres sell the best, and that's why we see so many open world games. But what I think will be interesting, I know Hideo Kojima is coming out with Death Stranding soon, and he says that's going to be an entirely new, different kind of game. So if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Kojima expert or anything. I'm a pleb in the sense I only played the newest Metal Gear Solid, and I mean I loved it, but I'm not like super deep into his mythos and whatnot. But I can tell he has a sense that he treats games kind of on a higher level than the average American consumer developer. So I can appreciate that from that man.
And he
Now,
definitely makes them for himself, not a publisher or an audience.
yeah.
There's some parts of like Metal Gear 4, it just goes on for hours and you can't do anything. You just have to watch it.
Well then, if the games are consistent quality, then like be my guest, do that shit. Now, something else that it is November, it is the time of the NoFap, and you have been pretty vocal in your not just this month. you're one of the classic anti-Reddit accounts in general, but this month especially, it just seems like there's an odd rebellion to NoFap that we haven't seen. Like last year, I don't think this happened, where all the porn companies were like, "NoFap is bad. NoFap or NoFap doesn't give men an outlet to release their aggression and whatnot." Like, what the hell's going on with this?
Noticed it break mainstream last year when I noticed my friends were talking about it. And before then, that was just something on the internet I'd followed from, I think, starting in 2011 was when I first came across it. And so it usually takes about a year after my friends talk about something for it to be completely mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the adult companies have definitely caught wind of it, and they notice that their ad revenues decline in November, and they're probably just worried about that.
Yeah, it's probably just highly cynical, but it's so weird how they'll go on the Twitter and post all this stuff, and then it's honestly funny to see just all the people, all these anons from weird Twitter just ravage these X hamster accounts and whatnot. It's quite the sight.
I mean, people's mileage is going to vary with it, but you don't know unless you try it. A
Yeah.
lot of the people who criticize it or don't believe it works either can't do it or won't do it. So it's really,
Do you have an experience with that?
I've been doing that on and off, I think since 2011.
Yeah. Do you
Become
notice any benefits?
Absolutely the first thing you'll see is there's a change in people's eyes. Kind of sounds there's definitely more brightness. The eyes lighten up as well, but there's definitely a lot of good physiological changes.
Yeah. What about let's see. What about any physiological changes? Because when I do it, I have like way more vitality. I focus better. When I go to the gym, it feels better. My lifts feel stronger. I'm less anxious around people when I'm in discussion or not when I'm not masturbating. Do you find those effects similar?
I would definitely say they're similar. This practice really goes back probably 2,500 years. You can find old Hindu texts, old Buddhist texts about this, as well as some in ancient Greece. And so it's really not something new. It's just been rebranded and repackaged for present day.
Yeah. Yes. I mean the Catholic Church. Doesn't the Catholic Church have a doctrine against masturbation?
I know the previous popes, they were pretty vocal about abstinence and I forgot the other word, continence.
Yeah. For all I can see, this new pope doesn't count. So we'll take the other
Yeah,
guy's word.
I wouldn't count him.
We'll take the other guy's word. So, but in terms of more like the community aspect of it, like it's almost like a partisan issue at this point. Um, with the what are your take on that? With like the porn companies being so adamant that these people are just not masturbating, and then they're making up all this fake information and whatnot, like oh it's healthy and all that shit, and it's clearly not. If anybody who has tried NoFap can attest to that. What are your thoughts on that?
In terms of the companies providing this stuff, initially, I just think they're worried about their sites making less money. We can go into conspiracy theories, and there's definitely some truth to those about do with promoting that sort of stuff. But I think initially they're worried about their revenues declining in November.
Yeah, that's probably the most cynical reason for all of this.
They're still businesses at the end of the day.
Yeah, and have you seen that account Woke Capital at all?
I used to follow them until they got banned or something.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, like that's pretty eye opening because I knew about the corporate, what would you call it, like corporate
I usually just call it the monoculture.
yeah, like the corporate monoculture, and then it's so obvious how they just pander to these supposedly anti-capitalist, the whole anti-capitalist people, and they're like, it's like J.P. Morgan, like we support your rights. It's just the most obvious. Like, come on, mate.
People misdirect their anger towards the political system when it should be towards these corporations that have a lot more influence on your life.
Exactly, exactly. Just speaking from experience, what do you think has affected you more, the political system or the banks throughout your whole life?
I mean, in terms of the banks.
Like in terms of like maybe not the banks, but just the whole corporatist system as a whole, or the whole political lawmaking system as a whole. What about those two?
The political and lawmaking system that exists just to support the corporate system, they work hand in hand. They're fairly indistinguishable at this point.
Mm-hmm. Now, something that you talk about that nobody else really talks about, and I mean it's kind of a meme, but there's also, but I suspect there's a bit of a grain of truth to it. Is neatdom, right? Can you explain being a neat in a sense for people that are unaware of that term?
So the term NEET, I think it comes from the British government. It means not in employment, education, or training. So someone who's basically dropped out of the labor and education market. So what I did with NEET and what I'm trying to do with NEET is make it into more of a self-employed man type thing where you're out of education, you're out of employment because you're making it on your own.
You're out of structures and you're kind of into you've built your own structure and you've abandoned the mega structures is what I guess you're trying to say.
Yes, exactly. So if someone were to ask me what are the two types of people, I would say there's consumers and creators.
Hmm.
So I want people, and I'm working on it myself too, to be more creators than consumers.
Right. And that's something I found with the whole drop shipping community. The whole, that section specifically of the e-business Twitter is, to me, it boils down to drop shippers are, they're exploiting consumerism. That's what I've basically. It's not like other online businesses like, like blogging or making fitness programs or like helping people with their relationships or showing people how to start a business and whatnot. Dropshipping is just straight up aiding the consumerism. And I think there's a couple other sects in this online business area of Twitter that are similar to that. Do you have any thoughts on the whole dropshipping aspect and the whole, aiding consumerism aspect?
How to get into drop shipping? I'm going to take one of the guy on Twitter's courses pretty soon.
Hmm.
But I think it's a great way to get into e-commerce. Essentially, if you can sell someone else's product, you can probably go ahead and make your own product. But if you can't sell someone else's product, you probably shouldn't specific niche. So it's a really good way to make a legitimate e-business because like I said, there's drop shipping sites selling right now for hundreds of thousands, if
Right.
not millions of dollars.
Right. I do I do think it's good because in a sense because like you said it teaches the fundamentals. You don't have to buy an inventory. You can I mean there's probably websites that tell you which products are the best. So you can basically just practice. It's basically just a vehicle to practice selling in a sense.
Exactly. And you don't have to create content. That's the biggest thing. When you're doing a blog or making a YouTube channel, you have to constantly create new stuff to keep your viewership engaged and grow your viewership. Whereas a drop shipping site or an e-commerce site with your own product, you make money while you're asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you eventually want to completely get out of the workforce and become a neat living off online income? Is that your goal?
That would be my goal. I'm going to continue working, find the most lucrative job I can, and use that to fund business expenses outside of what I need to live. And hopefully, I can build a few second, third streams of income where I can eventually leave that, sell those businesses, and live off capital gains.
Nice, nice. Now, what is your lifestyle like right now? Do you go out to bars? Do you do any like I don't know? Well, just you tell me what your lifestyle is like, because obviously I don't know, and I'm asking the question.
Right now, since I've taken this job I'm about to leave, I've been doing that for about a year. That's before sunup to after sundown. I get home about 2 hours before I have to go to sleep and do it again. So
So
hasn't left a lot of time for anything else.
doesn't leave a lot of time. That's very interesting. And that's just and is that just 5 days a week or so?
5 days a week, get to work from home some days, but yeah, been doing that for a year and don't want to do it anymore.
What's your commute like, man?
That's really bad. So get up like 4 a.m. usually. Takes an hour and a half to get there. On the way home, it's twice that. So just listen to audiobooks and zone out and not think
Jesus,
about it.
Jesus. How can you do that without audiobooks? Like,
Really can. He can't. I listen to the radio sometimes and it's the same 100 songs or so, but audiobooks have been very valuable. That way I can kind of turn this, what would be a waste of time, into something educational.
yeah, yeah. Now, damn. Imagine all the people that do that and just sit there with no other stimulus and just wait for nearly 3 hours.
It's probably the majority, or actually, the majority would probably pay for rent in that city and not save any income.
Do you think that's a legitimate way to save? Are you, would you rather between renting in a city and yeah you don't your commute? Do you think the commute is worth it basically with the money you save?
No, I don't think it's worth in terms of time investment. If you can live in the city and get it, I don't want roommates, so that's why I did it.
Okay.
So, but if you're fine with living with roommates and getting your rent down as much as possible and saving more, I would do that because the time exchange where you're just sitting in a car for hours isn't worth it. You could be going to the gym, you could be building a business on the side with that amount of time.
What's the like? I think you made a tweet about this before, and how like the urban thought is the only person that actually enjoys what's happening around them. Can you expand on that point? Because I found that really interesting.
I'm finding that these cities people move to, the larger American cities, Los Angeles, I haven't been to New York, but that would be one of them. They do seem built for women in a way where they seem to be the only people who are there and benefiting from the services and products that it provides. Really, what advantage does a city have over a suburb or a rural area where you're going to get a much better quality of life?
Yeah, it's I've never liked the city. I live somewhat near a city, and every single time, a rather large city, and every single time I go there, I don't like I just don't like it. Maybe it's an aesthetic thing, maybe it's just like a vibrational thing, but I just simply do not like the city.
Most American cities are completely unlivable. The closest thing to a European city, and it's sad to say, is San Francisco,
Really?
where you can walk. Yeah, you can walk most of it. The weather's good, and it has a ton of problems, but it's still a more traditional city than something like Los Angeles.
Yeah. Well, I was recently in San Francisco, and that was an interesting experience to say the least. But
It's definitely a strange place.
yeah, no, definitely. But just purely from the characters that you see walking around, like disregard the infrastructure and the government and the actual problems. Just the people you see are like you're like, wow, okay,
It's a
this is
bit
America.
bizarre. Same with Portland too. I haven't been to Seattle, but I'd imagine it's similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, see that, and then every single time you look up, a city in, see Dubrovnik, Croatia, or just any city in Italy or something like that, or Germany, and you see like, the brick buildings and the cafes on the street, no cars, cobblestone streets, beautiful art everywhere, and then you just go outside and look, and you're just like, what the hell happened? What went
That's
wrong?
really all I want from a city, and you can't find that in North America outside of maybe Quebec City.
It's just like that part of America is grating to me, honestly. Like, there's lots of good things about this country, but the architecture part just kills me every single time I see any other European architecture or even Asian. Japan, even some parts of China. You're like, huh? Why can't we have that?
There's definitely an older history in those places. The biggest complaint I have is the reliance on the car.
Hmm.
The country's so big, they kind of built it as far away from everything.
Yeah. It's not. It's not. It's packed together in certain areas, but it's not packed together nicely. It's almost like we're gonna pack it together, but you're still gonna have a car everywhere.
I
So
wish they'd build a decent rail system because the current one they have takes just as long as driving.
now, how? What, see, come on, fix your shit, America. Fix your shit. Now,
I think they don't want to because they want to keep pushing the automobiles, and there's probably something to that.
probably something to that. Probably something with oil.
Yeah.
Definitely something with oil. Now, you said you're writing a book.
Mhm.
Can you explain to me what that book is about? Will it cover these topics that we've talked about already? When city aesthetics, the neat life, corporatism, all that stuff.
So I have three main characters currently that cover a different aspect of what we talked about.
Hmm.
So I have the main character is going to be this wage slave type character working for a software company, and then his friend's going to be a neat, and so I'm going to contrast their two lifestyles.
Interesting. I did not know it was a fiction book. That's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely decided to go towards fiction. I didn't want to be preachy or anything, writing a nonfiction book and saying, "Oh, you need to think this way, you need to believe in this." So I thought writing a fiction book. I don't know if you've read Siddhartha, but that's able to teach the Buddhist message he wrote about through a story.
Yeah, same with like the Old Testament and whatnot, where it's told through a story, and you can extract the wisdom as you read it.
Yes, exactly.
See, it's weird. All the knowledge we get today is from nonfiction, hyper reductionist sources, whereas all the knowledge from the past was in the form of a story. And the people then, well, I assume they felt better in their day to day life, just doing things and whatnot. Maybe that's a sign of something.
Reading
Now,
comprehension's so low nowadays. People need to be told bluntly
oh
the
yeah,
information you want. And
it,
so a lot of story form instructional stuff is lost.
have you said or read any of Dasein tweets where he's in class and these kids ask the most like base questions, and then they also, they have their book report, and it's just filled with grammatical errors, and the syntax is all fucked up, and you're like, dude, this is like juniors in college. What happened?
That's got the like silhouette for his avatar.
Yeah, the dose of Percocets.
I don't know anyone's name. I just recognize him by the
Okay,
avatar.
okay, okay. Yeah, it's like the black Wojak thing.
He has the best frescoes. The red frog guy
Did he start the fresco?
definitely popularized it on Twitter.
Okay, and then now, see, like to me, like Pepe kind of fucking died. I like it's still used a bit, but it's not used as like a main meme anymore. I see those brain dead Wojaks way more.
Bojack definitely has more adaptability. I don't think Pepe's dead. It'll always be around. It's just something that's
Oh yeah,
going to be
no,
around as long as the internet is.
yeah, no, Pepe. I mean, I definitely think it peaked in 2016, but now it's just like it's almost like the letter A in meme language, where it's just a staple. It's not going to peak anytime soon, but it's always going to be there.
It's interesting as he changes emotion every couple years. So during the election, he had the smirk. Now he's back to being sad. And so it kind of reflects
Is
the
it
the mood of the times.
yeah? Is it like a what would you call it? Like a, a fuck temperature stick or whatever? Like a temperature gauge of the public consciousness on Twitter, right?
I'd very much agree with that.
I mean, I used horrible language right there, but the point got across. I'm loving the new brain dead Wojak trend, and I saw you use mine in something about you were nagging on potheads, and I want this trend to stay. I love this trend.
There's so many variations you can do with it. You can literally apply it to any scenario you come across.
Yeah, it's the Swiss Army knife of memes, and I think it's great. The NPC meme, like that I thought that was gonna last longer in a sense.
They killed it by making it about politics when it was never about politics to begin with.
Yeah, like a lot. Like that's what happened. I remember. What was it? It was like August, right? And you popularized it, but it was never about politics. It was more about just people plugged into the culture, right? And people wage
That's
slaving, right?
plugged into the matrix, so to speak. I never made it about politics. You can go through all the old NPC posts. There's nothing political in us.
Yeah, and then the mainstream grabbed it, and then they just wrecked that. Like
The
people's AVIs switched to them and with the NPC face. They put CNN in the NPC face, and I just thought this is gonna die. This is gonna die.
the mainstream wants to make everything about Republicans and Democrats and left and right. They don't want you to look outside that or attack outside that. And that's why when you have memes like the NPC thing or you have the No Fap November, that's when they get mad because that's actually attacking
The substructure.
yes, the sort of structures they built to keep you down, so to speak.
Yeah, they get really mad at that. What I noticed with the media too is that this is just a thought I had, in that like say there's just to simplify everything, say there's 200 issues, right? That on every year there's 200 issues, and the media put and like let's just say like 98% of these are like very minuscule, like no impact to you as a person in reality. How are you gonna like someone if you go through that for like multiple decades, right? If you're a boomer and you've tuned into Fox News, NBC, CBS, CNN every day of your life since like 1980, right? And you have all these different opinions on all these different topics that have just built up inside you. How are you going to connect with somebody else truthfully?
Can't People won't admit they're wrong, and when you're so ingrained in your beliefs that aren't even your own, they're from exogenous sources, you're not going to really ever adopt or even look at any alternative points of view.
No, it's quite the dilemma. Do you think it's gonna end like explosive? Do you think this whole cultural thing is gonna end explosively, or you think it's just gonna kind of like there's gonna be a really long, drawn out, ugly but not like hyper physical or dangerous thing, and it's just gonna drag out and just get really like I don't want to say dystopian, but just dehumanizing in a sense.
As long as they can keep coming up with new ways to anesthetize people, either through electronics or pharmaceuticals, they can keep tightening the screws and keeping everything together.
Okay, so you don't really subscribe to the idea that everything's gonna collapse.
No, they're just going to come out with new and better, quote, forms of inline.
Forms of control and whatnot.
Yeah, more or less.
Do you think they'll ever? Do you think they'll ever get into memes as
I
like
mean,
a?
if you think about it, they have their own memes. Like, X is a social construct. They have things that people repeat
Mm,
unconsciously that they've been told that they really have never looked at critically.
that's an interesting idea. A lot of the postmodernist
They,
ideals.
they might not be frogs, but they're definitely sayings you've been heard repeated for 100 years that
Yeah,
people believe instinctually.
definitely, definitely. What is your take on the whole weird Twitter climate right now? Like more the less the culture as a whole, but more of just our little weird side of Twitter. I feel after the election, the it kind of died down like a scary amount. The fervor isn't there anymore.
It's probably good the fervor isn't there. I don't think it's good to be too excited about some change in politics because it's really all the same thing at the end of the day.
Hmm.
Seems quiet around the place. That's why I've been looking into different sub communities on there and finding a lot of value there as well.
Yes. Now, in your master plan, in Faceberg's master plan of breaking out of wage slavery and becoming a NEET, does this
Hmm.
involve moving from America?
I don't know. I've really only been places in North America, so it's kind of hard to say if I'd like somewhere overseas better outside of what I think I know about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do some digital nomad thing or anything like that. I'm going to have a post on that soon, but really the problem with that is these guys are only making a couple grand a month. And while it's enough to live really well in Thailand or Bulgaria, you're not saving anything for retirement.
That's a good idea.
Essentially, you're forced to live in the nicest parts of those countries because the bad parts of those countries make pretty much everywhere in America look nice.
Yeah, like let's say like Thailand, the bad parts of Eastern Europe. Like nobody's gonna want to go there. Nobody's gonna want to go there.
Yeah, like in the U.S. at least, a couple Russian guys won't shake you down for more rent money with baseball bats, but
Yeah,
in Eastern Europe, it
that's
could
just
happen.
that's just the way of life in Eastern
Yeah,
Europe.
so people kind of get these fantasies in their head that overseas is better, and it does have a lot of advantages, and the grass may be greener for you or for anyone else, but it's definitely more important to live there for maybe a month before making the jump.
Hmm. A lot of people have they just see the pictures on the internet, but they haven't smelt it, felt it, walked through it. None of that.
I think a lot of it's just the sex tourism thing, which is kind of gross, but that's probably the people's main motivating factor why they go to those countries.
Is that what you call it? Sex tourism?
That's the
Where they
official word for it, but
okay,
yeah,
well,
I
they'll
guess
just
that's what I call
they'll
it.
just be like, dude, you have to go to Croatia because the women there are really hot and they're super feminine, right? Is that
And the ones that are gonna hook up with an American aren't the ones probably worth your time.
no, no. Especially if
Same with any country.
especially if it's your first time there and you like walk into the club and you're like, hey, I'm an American. Like all the good girls would be like, go away.
No one would care.
Nobody would care. Ah, okay. Now we'll hit one more topic and then we'll sign off and say our goodbyes.
That sounds good.
Now, what can you talk about corporate life? We're going to circle back to corporate life again. Can you talk about that in kind of a holistic sense and the health of a society that this corporate system has on everyday people who aren't as I feel people like you and me and a lot of people on the weird Twitter are somewhat
Mm.
even if we are wage slaves, we are insulated from some of the true horrors because we're aware. We know what's going on, and we know when to put effort in, we know when to not put effort in, we know when to like tune out things. But those who are just fully plugged in, like what do you think that's gonna have on holistic society as a whole within the next 10, 20 years?
I think the number one thing people need to understand about corporate America is that it's something relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
Structure, the office work, that didn't really exist 100 years ago. And so working at some job for a salary is new in that regard.
Right, right. So
Health effects. I mean, I've just seen my own parents, other people's parents, they spend, their whole lives at these companies. These companies don't give a fuck about them. Their health declines and they develop chronic diseases. They get on a lifetime prescription of medication, which is what the companies want to get you on, and it just grinds people down.
explain that a bit more. So I'm obviously not in a corporate workforce, and I'm rather young, very young. So
Mm.
I don't understand the whole aspect of that. So do the corporations themselves put you on medication through like doctor's orders and whatnot?
Essentially, the lifestyle you lead when you're working, it's usually not even 9 to 5. I don't know where that comes from. It's 8 to 5 usually, and usually more than that.
Oh,
So
jeez.
essentially, you develop these chronic diseases. So there's chronic diseases and but non-chronic diseases. That's like the flu. But a chronic disease or lifestyle disease, that's one you contract over time. I think that's right. I forgot
Yeah,
all my medicine,
yeah.
but
So
that's
that's
like your diabetes, heart
Crohn's
disease.
disease, cancers, those types of things.
Exactly. So those are caused by lifestyle. They call them lifestyle choices, but a lot of people are kind of forced into some of them. And essentially, they're you can't really get cured from them.
Right,
So they put you on this medication that just treats the symptoms.
right. And that's basically useless in the long run.
But it makes you a reoccurring customer because if they cured you, you'd only buy the drug once. But if they
Right.
can get you on that, lifetime Netflix
Hmm.
monthly subscription,
Oh,
they
yeah.
can they can get you to keep paying. And
Healthcare
their
as a
goal
service.
goal, I think it's a bit of a conspiracy, but I think these pharmaceutical corporations, they want to get everyone on a lifetime prescription to something. And this can start as early as 6,
I
put
can see
some
that.
little kid on ADHD meds. And can you really get cured from that using those meds?
I don't think so. I mean, I had ADHD, but I was my parents never put me on those meds for God's sake, and now I'm very focused compared to how I was, and that was just through aging and just by meditation, changing my diet and whatnot, just some natural things like that.
Meditation is very good, but ADHD, a lot of the prescribe are just how boys are at that age. You don't want to sit in a classroom for
Yeah,
8 hours a day and learn the alphabet. You want to go outside and break stuff and fight.
yeah, but hey, that's not school appropriate, and you'd get written up for that. So there you go. That's what happens. But
Exactly.
I don't think that's a conspiracy at all because there's all this processed food, and you have this incredibly sedentary, like arduous and boring lifestyle, and then that repeats over time. It's not how a human's supposed to be. The human animal is designed very differently, and then that basically confirms that you will get a serious illness, and then they give you these drugs, like you said, that treat the symptoms, not the actual causes. And then you basically become a slave for the medical system because you go, keep me in higher doses, blah blah blah. Maybe something gets taken out, like maybe you need to get an organ replaced, and now it needs changes every 2 years. So now you're a permanent slave basically, and I do not know what's gonna happen when that will that crumble ever?
It's really hard to say, but I do think you're right with saying how all these pharmaceuticals, agriculture, the corporate lifestyle, they do seem to converge and have a lot of overlap that supports each component of it. But I don't know. They can keep coming out with better drugs. I don't know if the biomodification will ever happen where people are getting stuff implanted into them, but they'll find a way to keep people plugged in.
Yeah, yeah. Whether that's through opioids or the next best thing, it's because I feel if opioids get taken down, they'll find something else.
And we're already seeing that. They have fentanyl, which is even stronger. And I think there was a new one that's even worse than that now. So
Yeah.
I read on Twitter today someone had a post that with some brain chip that trips dopamine into you, you can turn on and off. So you always feel good. And something like that could happen. I don't know.
Damn. Imagine that just being plugged in. You go to work and you just have that dopamine just riding through you the whole time.
In a way, people are already hooked up to those systems. They're just external. You have the drugs people are taking,
Hmm.
SSRIs, um, social media in a way.
Yeah. Do you have an optimistic view of the future in terms of the if we can break through this and increase our happiness, get healthier as a society, all the white pill stuff. Do you have a view on that?
I think it's possible on an individual level. And I think before people start worrying about society as a whole and civilization as a whole, they really need to focus on themselves. And that's to ask themselves, am I healthy? Am I able to support my life without relying on an income from someone else? And so when you have your health and your wealth, and it's probably good to worry about larger things. But most people, including myself, we just need to start getting those two things in line first.
Yeah, right. That's kind of like what Jordan Peterson talks about, where these people don't have their lives in line, and then they're under 20, and then they go out and try to change the world, and that's just a recipe for disaster.
And you see their poor health, their poor
Yes,
physical health reflected in their politics. So
right,
your ideas are largely a reflection of your physiology. And so if you're sick, you're gonna have probably sick ideas.
right, right. That's an idea because when I was in LA doing doing videography for the hoax shoot, Mike Cernovich's
Mhm.
hoaxed. I there was a protest going on. It wasn't about hoax, but it was on the street like a couple blocks down from Sunset, and they were protesting some rent things, just some whatever policy for the midterms. But literally everybody in the crowd was like deformed, overweight, like sickly looking, evil eyes. Like something was just something amiss with the whole group.
That's just LA.
Nobody looked hell. It's either L.A. or
It's just LA.
it's just L.A.
No, but I get what you mean. Like
Yeah.
these people need to worry about their health and their money first. I mean, these politics, none of this shit matters. Like, get your health in order, get your
Okay. This is good.
business up and running, and
Can you
then take care of things.
can you give people listening a prescription or like maybe some tenets on what to do to get their life in order in a sense?
Stop jerking off.
Boom, right there. No Fap November.
Definitely look into that. I don't know if it'll work for you, but worth trying. Doesn't cost anything. Doesn't take up any of your time, so it's definitely worth trying. Lift weights. I need to get back into that. I've been really bad about that, but that's
Lift weights.
proven to improve every facet of your life.
I would say that's yeah, it's the iron pill. That's what I would call it because it just everything from it. It's not just like moving weights and getting stronger. There's so much more to it. That just like it just builds, it builds, it builds. Your physiology gets better, your posture gets better. You think clearer. You take responsibility for yourself. You have to work on planning. You have to work on eating right. Like all these things come from it.
That's amazing. That's again with the tangential learning. You start lifting weights, maybe you'll start learning about diet. See,
Truly,
so
truly great.
another tenant, another health tenant. Just get sleep. People say, "Oh, you only need 5 hours. You only need 8 hours." Just sleep as much as you need to. I'm really sick of hearing about grinding and rising early. If you need to sleep early or need to sleep late, do it. I mean, and
Yeah.
do what you need to do. But if you need more sleep, if you don't function in the morning, then get up later. It's hard with a corporate job, but that's why I think people should be building forms of income on the side.
hmm Now, you touched on something right there. The whole hustle and grind aspect, right?
Mm.
Do you think that's mostly a myth? The whole like, oh, you gotta hustle, you gotta grind, you gotta work, 16 hours a day on your shit. You have to just grind and grind and grind. Do you think that's mostly a myth or just bullshit meant to like sell stuff?
Mostly, mostly bullshit to sell stuff unless it's your own business endeavor. If you're working really hard to make some other guy rich and you don't even have equity in the company,
Mm-hmm.
that's dumb.
Yeah,
But if you're working on your own internet business, your own physical business, you own that.
yeah, that's your thing.
I hard work's more valuable than being smart, especially when you're getting started. And once you put in, a lot of people are scared of putting in the hard work, but once you put in the hard work, you can start automating stuff, outsourcing tasks to people tasks you don't want to do.
Right,
So you need to be hardworking before you can be smart.
right, right. No, I think we've covered a lot of great material here. Faceberg, do you have any final words for the people that have been listening?
Final words, look after your health. That's your most important. I don't even want to call it a resource. It's probably the most important thing. That's going to be your foundation of everything you do, and it's not worth trading for anything.
Keep your health in check, people. Faceberg, it was really great to have you on. Hope to talk to you again soon, my man.
Absolutely. Great talking with you.